Good day everyone, and welcome for another educational video that tackles about hydrology. So today we will be discussing about different problems of watershed management and watershed protection in Davao City. So for the contents, we have the introduction, biophysical resources, and lastly the main topic, which are the problems, issues, and solutions. So introduction, let us know what are the terms watershed management and watershed protection. So first is the watershed management. So watershed management is a term used to describe the process of implementing land use practices and water management practices to protect and improve the quality of the water and other natural resources within a watershed by managing the use of those land and water resources in a comprehensive manner. So next is the watershed protection. So watershed protection is a means of protecting a lake, river, or stream by managing the entire watershed that drains into it. Safe water for the future provides education to communities on the location, extent, and properties of their watershed and how to form a watershed partnership. So let's move on to Davao River Basin, or the DRB. So Davao River is considered the third largest river in Mindanao, next to Mindanao River and Agusan River. The main river is 86 kilometers long and drains an area of about 175,960 hectares. So in its view of its size, economic significance to the Davao region, and its potential to provide the water security in Davao City, the Davao River Basin, or DRB, is included among the 18 major basins in the country that are priority for master planning. DRB, or the Davao River Basin, is shared by Bukidnon, that covers the San Fernando, Quezon, and Kitaw-Taw, and then Davao del Norte covers the Laingan and Davao City. It has 78 sub-watersheds. 28 watersheds are within Bukidnon and are collectively referred to by the Bukidnon province as the Davao-Salud River Watershed Cluster. And also Davao composes 67% of the total area of DRB. And for the next slide, we will see the location of Davao River Basin. The blue one there is the whole area of Davao River Basin. So the area totals 1,759.6 square kilometers. See how long and how big the Davao River Basin? And then it covers Region 10 and Region 11, since it was located first at Bukidnon, which is in northern Mindanao, which is also Region 10, and then up to the Davao del Sur and Davao del Norte. And then provinces, Bukidnon and Davao del Sur, and then towns that will cover 4, and then barangays 100, and its outlet is at Davao Gulf. And then the estimated population recorded in 2010, it has 625,564 residents. And then the RBO is the Davao River Basin Management Alliance RDC resolution. It's the RDC 11 resolution number 7 series of 2015 and RDC 11 resolution number 62 series of 2014. And then for forest land, it covers 1,339.21 square kilometers. A&D, or the alienable and disposable lands, has 274.71 square kilometers, and NGP area of 84.53 square kilometers. So next is the biophysical resources. In biophysical resources, we will tackle about land resources, water resources, coastal resources, the socio-economic conditions, natural hazards and climate change, and lastly, the governance and institutions. First is land resources. About 77% of DRB are forest lands and 23% are A&D lands. Most of the A&D lands are in Davao City and San Fernando. These are devoted mainly to agriculture and 8% for annual crops and 61% for the perennial crops. And then about 17% of A&D lands are wooded lands, shrublands, and grasslands, which could be potential areas of agriculture. Davao City and San Fernando also have the biggest forest land areas. So in 2010, DRB had 16,115 hectares and 17,180 hectares of remaining closed canopy and open canopy forests respectively. So these forests constituted 25% of total forest lands, and about 64% of forest lands were wooded lands or grasslands, and also cultivated areas in forest lands both for annual and perennial crops accounted for 6% of forest lands. It is also estimated that based on its 2010 vegetative cover, DRB has a carbon stock of 9,153,240 tons. So on the figure or the table presented, here are the land resources within the Davao River Basin. So in the LGU covered, in Bukidnon, it covers San Fernando, Quezon, Kitaw-Taw, and Valencia City. And for Davao del Norte is Talaingod, and for Davao del Sur or the Davao, mainly in Davao City. So for A&D lands, in San Fernando it covers 1,332 hectares, which covers 3.3% of the land area. And then for Talaingod, we have 496 hectares, which covers 1.2% of the area, and the Davao, which covers mainly the largest land, which has 38,663 hectares and covers 95.5% of the area, with total of 100% and 40,449 hectares. And then for the forest lands or the timberland, San Fernando covers 27,846 hectares, Quezon has 11,104 hectares, and the Kitaw-Taw 4,028 hectares, and Valencia City with 227 hectares. And then for Davao del Norte, we have Talaingod with 13,841 hectares, and Davao City of 78,423 hectares with a total of 135,469 hectares. And then San Fernando covers about 20.6% of the land, and Quezon with 8.2%, Kitaw-Taw with 3%, and then Valencia with 0.1%, and then Talaingod 10.2%, and Davao City with 57.9% with a total of 100%. So in total area, Bukidnon has 29,178, and then Quezon has 11,104, Kitaw-Taw 4,028, Valencia City with 227, and then Talaingod with 14,337, Davao City with 117,086 hectares, with a total of 175,960 hectares. And then San Fernando covers 16.6% of the land, Quezon with 6.2%, Kitaw-Taw with 2.3%, and Valencia City with 0.1%, Talaingod with 8.2%, and then Davao City 66.5% with a total of 100%. So this means that alienable and disposable lands or A&D lands covers 23% of the total land, and then for forest lands or the timberland has 77% of the total land, which sum of 100% land. And for additional knowledge, diverse flora and fauna, including rare, vulnerable, and critically endangered species, are found in Bukidnon Plateau, Mount Sinaka, Mount Apo, and other mountains and forests that surrounds DRB. So these forests are nesting grounds of the Philippine eagle. So in the next slide, you will see the change in land cover or use in 2003 and 2010. So as you can see, within the period of 2003 to 2010, significant changes in land cover or use within DRB have been noted, such as thinning or disappearance of closed canopy forests, disappearance of open canopy forests, conversion of wooded grasslands or shrublands into grasslands, conversion of annual crop areas and wooded lands to perennial crop areas, expansion of cultivated areas into forest lands, and then the increase in built-up areas with some areas encroaching into forest lands. And then overall, there was a decrease in natural forest cover, which covers the closed and open canopy by about 21%, which translates to average annual decrease of 3%. So recent and ongoing efforts to increase the vegetative cover of DRB through tree planting activities of various organizations, IP communities, the DCWD or the Davao City Water District in Malagos Reservation, and of the National Greening Program or the NGP, which has covered a total of 5,466 hectares from 2011 to 2014, are not sufficient to recover the forest cover that have been lost. So it's really sad. So since there are pending ancestral domain claims that once approved will effectively close the open access or the uncleared forest lands in DRB, which is estimated at 11,783 hectares, given the wide coverage of the ancestral domain, most of the existing forests, grasslands, and wooded land will be within the CADPs. So this indicates that the extent of the resource management responsibilities that the CADT holders have to shoulder. So those ancestral domain are not being claimed, not yet claimed, or will be on CADT holders' shoulders. So next is the water resources. So findings of the hydrologic and water balance study indicate that the natural water surplus in DRB consists of 3.3 million cubic meters, and then a total runoff, and then 90 million cubic meters of net groundwater recharge. So the 3.3 MCM or the 3.3 MCM runoff is 69% of the estimated mean annual rainfall or the MAR, which is 2,652 millimeters, and then the 90 MCM net groundwater recharge is only 2% of the MAR. So this means that the surface water resource is far more abundant than the groundwater stock within the basin. And then the low recharge is basically due to the geological and morphological character of the mountainous and rolling terrain of the upper sub-basins, which is generally of impervious character and is not favorable for recharge. So most of the percolated water flows out of storage as mid-slope springs and river-based flow and does not reach the aquifers. So currently, the uses of the surface water resource of DRB are limited to domestic water supply and irrigation of annual and perennial crops. So most of the water supply of Davao City, provided by the DCWD, is sourced elsewhere. So hindi siya within Davao City ang water. So since we are talking about the water resources, let's move on to the Davao City watersheds. So there are 8 watersheds in Davao City, which are the Davao River, Lason River, Taloma River, Banawan River, Tuganay River, Lipadas River, Siburan River, and Matina River watershed. And it has a total area of about 244,000 hectares and covers 204 barangays. So the water management in the Philippines, there are two-tier system between the national and local government agencies. So the national government agencies and the local government agencies are responsible for the water use management, watershed management, and water quality management. National government agencies like DNR, DPWH, NEDA, NIA, PNOC, NPC, DOH, DLG, and so on. And then MWSS and LWUA are responsible naman for water use management. So, to secure the water resources in Davao City, there are ordinances and water that are being implemented. So first is we have the Davao City Water Code of 2001. So this identifies the recharge zone, aquifer, and conservation areas that need to be protected and institutionalize a multi-sectoral body called the Watershed Management Council to implement the said code. Next is we have the Marine Protected Ordinance of 2007, and this yields to establishment and management of Davao City marine protected areas. And then we have the Comprehensive Fisheries Ordinance that promotes sustainable development, conservation, and management of the fisheries and aquatic resources. Next, we have the Rainwater Harvesting Ordinance of 2009. This promotes harvesting, storage, and utilization of rainwater as a viable alternative source of water supply. And then we have the Ecological Solid Waste Management. So this is the creation of Solid Waste Management Board and a 10-year Solid Waste Management Plan. And then we have the Septage and Sewerage Ordinance. This established a program for septage and sewerage system for Davao City. And then next we have the Watershed Protection, Conservation, and Management Ordinance. This identifies the recharge zone, aquifers, and conservation areas and institutionalized the Watershed Management Council to implement the code. So same as the Davao City Water Code of 2001. And then we have the Organic Agriculture Ordinance. This advanced the right of all citizens to food sufficiency, sovereignty, and safety in accord with harmony of nature through organic agriculture mainstreaming. So let's go back to the biophysical resources. So we have the coastal resources. So the DRB has considerable and far-reaching impact on the water quality and resources in the coastal zone of Davao City and on Davao Gulf, which is host to diverse reef and mangrove species, seagrasses, migratory birds, whales and dolphins, sea turtles, and cetaceans. So, a number of these species are listed in the Convention on the International Trade of Endangered Species. So, the combined effects of pollution and sedimentation from Davao River and improper fishing practices have affected the quality of habitats within the city's municipal waters and in nearby LGUs. So, the coastal resources directly impacted by the Davao River are the first, marine protected areas or the MPA and fish sanctuaries in coastal barangays, including some in Samal Island, and then the turtle nesting sites and feeding sites of cetaceans and marine mammals. Third is the remaining mangroves forest in Matina Play and Bukana, and then the fishing grounds and nearby aquaculture farms, and lastly the beach resorts and recreation areas near the mouth of Davao River. So the coastal waters of Davao River are classified as Class SB, which means that the water is intended for recreation and as spawning areas for milkfish and similar species. So in the next slide, you will see the map of water quality monitoring stations and the coastal zone of Davao City. Okay, so that's it. So let's move on to the social economic conditions. So the total population within the DRB that is recorded in 2010 has 626,322 residents. So the urban population composes of 75% of the total population within DRB. So the growth in population that is projected to reach almost 1 million by 2029 and the fast urbanization of Davao City are putting a lot of pressure on the resources and ecosystem services provided by the DRB. So for your information, IEP communities or the indigenous people communities are the largest and most important stakeholders of the DRB. So their distribution within DRB cannot be firmly ascertained. The lives of the IEPs have been affected by various developments in DRB, such as the logging operations that destroyed the forests, the opening of roads, and the introduction of new farming technologies. So there is intermingling of cultures as migrants like Ilocanos, Cebuanos, and Ilonggos have settled in DRB. So we have the following. So in the next table, you can see the following key economic activities of communities in DRB. First is the agriculture, second tourism and recreation. So for agriculture, some of 8,525 hectares or a total of 4.8% of the DRB area are devoted to annual and perennial crops. Like major crops grown are the rice, corn, cassava, sugarcane, and even high-value crops such as bananas, pineapples, citrus, durian, and etc. And then for tourism and recreation, Davao City's top 3 tourist destinations are within the DRB. So these are the Crocodile Park, the Animal Encounter in Malagos Garden, and the Philippine Eagle Center. So the latter facility attracts over 120,000 visitors annually. So whitewater rafting in Tamugan and Baguio is also a tourist destination. Found along the the Davao Bukidnon River are recreational, cultural tourism services, weekend houses, and training centers. So for commerce, services, and industry, among the 8 watersheds that I have said earlier, in Davao City, DRB has the biggest number of business establishments in the city at about 17,474. So this accounts for about 55% of the total establishments and 63% of business capital investments in Davao City. So most of 98% of these, however, are micro-enterprises and small industries that are engaged mainly in handicrafts, food processes, trading, and services. And then next we have the fisheries. So Davao Gulf is an important fishing ground. So annual fisheries yield in the Davao region is at 67,468 metric tons as recorded in 2012, and a population of 274,918 from the city's coastal barangays are highly dependent on fisheries and aquaculture for their livelihood. And lastly, we have the small-scale mining and quarrying. So small-scale gold mining operations have been reported in upstream San Fernando and in Quezon. There are 59 permit holders that extract sand and gravel at various points of the Davao River, so mostly of the downstream areas. So these activities are contributing to the water quality problem of Davao River. So next is we have the natural hazard and climate change. So the DRB with its topography, slope, and vegetation is susceptible to 3 types of natural hazards, which are the earthquakes, flooding, and landslides. So the Davao River Fault is located at the upper and middle part of the basin. So it poses a direct threat to DRB with 15 settlements found along the fault of San Fernando, Kitaotao, and Davao City. So the basin lies within a latitude zone with a typhoon path frequency of 7%, meaning an average of 1 to 2 typhoons each year pass through the basin. So the flood-prone areas in DRB are low elevation areas, about 6,200 hectares along the river banks of Davao River and some of its tributaries. And then flooding affects 10 barangays in Bukidnon and 72 barangays naman in Davao City. So the occurrence of flash floods have become more frequent. So the flash floods are due to excessive runoff from the rivers, housing and infrastructure development that constrict natural river flows, and inadequate and clogged drainage systems. So the table below shows the number of barangays highly susceptible to natural hazards. So here are the LGUs. We have Engr, Valencia City, Quezon, San Fernando, Kitaw-Tao, and Davao City. So in fault line, there are 10 barangays in San Fernando, and then 3 barangays naman in Kitaw-Tao, and 2 barangays in Davao City that are susceptible to natural hazards. So in for flooding naman, there are 5 in San Fernando, 2 in Kitaw-Tao, and then 19 barangays in Davao City. And then for landslide, we have Engr, 3 barangays, and then Valencia City, 1 barangay, Quezon, we have 4 barangays, and then San Fernando, 10 barangays, Kitaw-Tao, 7 barangays, and Davao City with 31 barangays. So in full time, it has a total of 15 barangays, and then for flooding, 26 barangays, landslide of 56 barangays. So the data shows that it underscores the importance of having disaster risk reduction and mitigation, or the DRRM, plans and zoning regulations enforced in the DRB local government units. Okay, next is the governance and institutions. So the stakeholder analysis that was undertaken identified 11 stakeholder groups. So there are 4 types. We have the decision and policy makers that composes the LGUs and the ANR, and then we have the resource managers and users like the CADT and tenure holders, and then we have the providers and intermediaries like the LGUs, national agencies, and the NGOs, and then we have also the influencers, which are naman civil society and even private sectors. So there exist 3 coordinating councils that have mandates to look after specific resource management areas within the DRB. So the physical areas, these councils are responsible for the coincide with the reach to reef continuum. So what are these councils? First, the Bukidnon Watershed Protection and Development Council, or the BPWMC, which covers the whole province of Bukidnon, including the Davao Salug Watershed. Then next, we have the Davao City Watershed Management Council, or the DCWMC, which is concerned naman with the watersheds of the city, including the DRB. And then lastly, we have the Davao Gulf Management Council, or the DGNC, which looks after the protection and management of the entire Davao Gulf, since the Davao Gulf is the receiving end of all that flows through Davao River. So the councils were created by different instruments and then operating under different institutional frameworks and are at different levels of growth and maturity. So DNR Region 11 and the Mindanao Development Authority, or the MINDA, deemed it an appropriate strategy to build on these existing institutions and form them into a Davao River Basin Management Alliance, or the DRBMA. So as you can see on the table, it shows the mandates, members, and status of BWPDC, DCWMC, and DGNC. So let's move on to our last topic, which is the main topic that discusses the problems, issues, and solutions. So here we have a table or a chart that shows the problem tree analysis of DRB problems and issues. We have the causes, core problems, and the effects. So first, let us know what are the causes. So we have the timber poaching, upland migration and rapid expansion of built-up areas, poverty, weak environmental governance or enforcement of laws and policies, unharmonized development, land use and resource management plans. We have also pollution from agricultural farms, lack of sanitation facilities, and also the settlement along riverbanks, estuaries, and coastlines. So what is the core problem, or what are the core problems? So we have the degradation of forest lands and conversion to other inappropriate land use. So this yields to poor water quality. So if we will have a poor water quality, what are the effects? So for reduced resilience of ecosystems, communities, we'll have depletion of forest cover or biodiversity loss. We also will have soil erosion, sedimentation, and siltation. And then we have the flooding and landslides. And then disruption of economic activities. And then we have the reduced production and ecotourism value. Since the environment is being destroyed, so diba, we will have reduced production and ecotourism value. Then we have the reduced access to clean water. Since we have poor water quality, we will have reduced access to clean water. Sana tayo kukuha, diba? If yung lugar natin will have a poor water quality, then mag-iisip tayo na we will have, or we will go to another area na naman to have a good quality, diba? Very hassle. So for destruction of coastal and aquatic habitat naman, the effects are, first, the marine biodiversity loss. So if sa land, magkakaroon tayo ng depletion of forest cover, dito naman is the destruction sa marine animals sa baba. And then the reduced ecotourism value, again, sa mga resorts, mga reefs, ganon. Magkakaroon tayo ng reduced ecotourism value. And then also the disruption of economic activities or the damages and losses. And lastly, pinaka-worst, the waterborne health problems. So, hindi lang sa environment, but also we are being endangered. We are in danger, diba? If we will have a poor water quality. Isipin nyo, waterborne health problems. You want that, diba? No? So, yeah. So, given all the problems and issues that have been raised, the major challenges that the master plan will seek to address over the next 15 years are, so first, we will secure the protection and conservation of ENR assets in DRB, like large parts of which are degraded, the large parts of which are degraded. And then, alleviation of the poverty situation in rural areas, which are largely the ancestral domain of the indigenous peoples. And then increasing the resiliency of ecosystems, communities, and livelihoods to natural hazards and the impacts of climate change. And then to enhance the capability of designated on-site local and resource managers and capability of, managers to effectively manage areas titled or tenured to them. And lastly, to put in place the appropriate and effective governance for the DRB management. So the major stakeholders of the Davao River Basin crafted this vision statement for the Davao River Basin, which says, a healthy Davao River Basin sustainably managed by empowered and responsible stakeholders. So it is the stakeholders' mission to collaboratively improve DRB's capacity and resiliency to provide ecosystems, goods, and services based on the principles of integrated water, resource management or the IWRM, good governance and stewardship, and upholding gender and cultural sensitivity and inclusive growth for the benefit of on-site land and resource managers, farmers, enterprises, industries, and communities. So the DRB vision is in harmony with the vision in development and resource management plans that are relevant to DRB and is aligned with the Mindanao Roadmap for 2020. So there are goals for the DRB Master Plan. There are twofold. First is to improve the quality and sustainability of ecosystem goods and services derived from the DRB and enhance the competitive advantage of the river basin. And for the second one is to promote local socio-economic growth of communities in DRB and reduce rural poverty. So there are 5 major targets that are expected to be achieved within 15-year plan period. First, we have to improve tree cover of DRB from the current 34% to 57%. Next, we have the increased competitive advantage in the production of perennial and high-value crops. We also have to sustain or dependable water flows in major rivers tapped for domestic water supply, hydropower, and irrigation, barring extreme drought events. So, we also have to improve overall water quality of the Davao River. And then we have to reduce vulnerability of communities to natural and climate change induced hazards, particularly flooding and landslides. So on the institutional code, it is expected that an effective governance system will be put in place with strong stakeholder participation to provide direction to the development investments in DRB and monitor biophysical, socio-economic, and institutional development results. So, let's move on to the Davao City major watershed issues. Since we discussed about the issues within the DRB, let's discuss naman mainly in Davao City. So, the major watershed issues, we have the unregulated water extraction, deforestation, land use conflicts, improper cultivation of hilly lands, poor waste management, and limited government resources for watershed management. So there is this organization that are helping or helps Davao City to secure or to improve the situation or the issues that are facing. So we have the Help Davao Network. So what is Help Davao Network? So it is a SEC-registered non-profit multi-sector network of volunteers and professionals with various backgrounds in technical, political, economic, planning and development, social and environmental advocacies, commonly working together in ensuring that stakeholders have access to sound science that can be used to better inform complex decisions and hard choices in water management. So they also acted as technical mediator when BCWD and Aboitiz competed for the use of the same surface water for drinking and hydropower. They also enhance capability in water and watershed management by facilitating participation of water leaders and water advocacy groups in trainings, consultations, and cross visits. So, Help Davao Network also promotes proactive participation in planning for water and watershed management programs. So, like in the aftermath of the Matina River flooding in 2011, Help Davao Network enjoined key stakeholders to a series of workshops in 2011 that espoused the IWRM approach. So one of the outputs is the formation of Davao Water Partnership or the DWP and its 5-year action plan. The plan was consequently adopted by the RDC. So they also enhance capability in water and watershed management by facilitating and participation of water leaders and water advocacy groups in trainings, consultations, and cross visits. So yun, naulit pala. So, next. How help Davao Network help Davao City major watershed issues? First, they develop the interdisciplinary material customized IWRM guidelines for Davao City and Davao region, which is relevant input to water education initiatives. And then the UNESCO IWRM guidelines was localized and customized based on the actual experiences of Davao City and Davao region through the participative engagement of all stakeholders involved in planning of the Davao Water Action Plan and drafting the resolution for the region-wide adoption of IWRM guidelines. So the outcomes, we have now Davao Water Partnership, we have Water Vision for Davao region, and then a 5-year DRR action plan for Matina-Pangi River, and we have the Regional Development Council resolution for the adoption of IWRM Davao Water Partnership Davao and Water Partnership Action Plan rather. And then they conducted Sustainability Science Project. So the major outputs of the multi-sector Sustainability Science Project with the theme Demonstration Site in Enhancing Resilience of Urban Water Systems in Mindanao was the development and turnover of barangay hazard maps and distribution of IEC materials to the LGUs and key stakeholders, the identification of most vulnerable barangays against hydro hazards, as well as the 15-year Sustainability Science Plan for Davao City. They also enhance sustainability for MSMEs and the communities through low-cost sanitation technology like the vertical helipad system. They also continuously develop professionals like for scientists, engineers, managers, and policymakers in the water sector. And lastly, they also have sustaining implementation through enabling policies, resolutions, and programs. Like for example, the Regional Development Council resolution for adoption of IWRM, Davao Water Partnership Action Plan, and then designation of Davao River as water quality management areas, and then Davao River Master Plan, and then Mindanao or the Minda Nurture Our Water program, and then BIMP EAGA resolution for the Mindanao-wide adoption of IWRM, and lastly, the Comprehensive Land Use Plan. So, for further study, I have the references here. Then, as you can see. Okay, so I guess that's all for you today, and I hope you learned a lot about this lesson, and see you for another video. Thank you. Bye.